If you had to pick, say, just three things out of that rather large kit bag of possibilities, JD, what were the three things that you would pull out of the kit bag and say, those are the essential things that I would start with, everything else I could build from there?
So I like a lot of the Six Sigma statistical tools that have been around since the 1920s and 30s, but are still very effective. So a run chart, which tracks the value of a process variable over time, and looking at the pattern that makes, the variation in the pattern, whether the pattern is increasing in an upwards direction, decreasing in a downwards direction. If there's patterns within the patterns, if there's subgroups of data that seem to be doing different, have different characteristics, very, very good visual tool for how a process is behaving. And then you can build upon a run chart to make a control chart where you actually look at the points in relative to a number of standard deviations from the mean average of the points. So how much is the variation away from the mean average? Really useful. Looking at the shape of data using a simple histogram is a wonderful tool that people don't use in a lot of companies. And again, the histogram will show you the shape of the data, but then you can put in specification limits on the histogram or tolerance limits that give you then an idea, is the process doing, is it well centered? Is the variation too much? So those are two very common Six Sigma type tools that can be applied in any business, can be applied in a bank, in a supply chain, in a hospital, as well as in a factory. One of the simplest lean tools that is built upon the concept of this thing called 5S, which is workplace organization. A lot of people, if you can look up 5S, we won't go into that now, but part of that is having a very visual workplace that people can see the state of the work, see what needs to be done, what is missing, can find things when they want it. So visualization can be obviously charts and, you know, messages, but it's also just how you have your workspace set out. What does your desktop look like? What does the floor look like? What do the walls look like? Is there anything on the walls of interest? Color coding things. Very, very powerful. That we use our eyes, you know, at work. It's the most powerful way to have a signal, right? Visualization. So I would say you want to be using these time series charts, run charts, control charts, histograms, which can then be used with tolerance limits up, upper and lower, and then just have a very visual workplace. I would say are my favorite three.
There's some points that I'd like to expand upon there, but JR, what would you add to that list?
I suppose when I'm probably prior Lean Six Sigma. I'm probably lean. I mean, I'm, you know, if you cut me in half, I'm probably 75% lean. John already mentioned on it 5S, and people take 5S that it's just a simple, they think it's a brush and clean up operation. In other words, they think it's a tidy up. It's so much more than that. As John says, that, you know, having your equipment in the right place, having the equipment that you need. And I think, you know, we talk about industry, but 5S in most offices is atrocious. You know that. You go into a solicitor's, how do they find what they're seeing? It's stacked up high. You know, but for me, so I'd say certainly 5S. The other for me is standardized work. Standardized work for me, fundamentally, how do you know what you're doing if you haven't got a standard operation? How do you know the detail? How do you train somebody new? How do you make sure you're following the standard operation? It's for me, and that people would say, well, yeah, but that's for manufacturing. Well, no, it's not. We had people in offices that had standardized work. Because or do you just come in and decide what you're doing? And I think the last one is workplace organization. Is for me, when you get to the point of material, or in an office, my desk is I'd call it 5S, probably a little bit not good there, but you need to be able to fundamentally reach what you need. We had, I suppose, one of the most important things for an operator, we had a 180-degree zone, which is called the green zone. So you imagine a 180-degree circle. The operator shouldn't have to step out that circle. If he's stepping out the circle, he's got too much walking, there's too much weight, or he's having to go for material. So I think the 5S one for me is, wherever I go, it's the first thing I look at. I cannot help it. And then when we get into the statistics side, I was always a statistics buff because I was in a measuring room, a fine measuring room, that all I did was, I did the standard for slip gauges across the plant. So that sort of thing. So measurement for me and statistics. And John said the simple control chart, it tells you a story. It tells you a story, but you have to read it.